Hi, this is Ilya with Worn&Wound, and today we're going to take a look at the Seiko SKX007. The 007 is one of the most iconic divers on the market today. If the Submariner is the quintessential modern dive watch on the higher end of the spectrum, the 007 is undoubtedly its affordable counterpart. It's usually the first watch collectors buy when they make the jump to mechanicals, but it's also prized by seasoned collectors and dive watch enthusiasts alike for its good looks, its superb build quality, the killer loom, and its great price point. At a street value that falls somewhere around the $150 mark, depending on the vendor or the availability at the time, it makes for a great versatile beater. The lineage of the 007 can be traced back to Seiko's earliest divers, starting with the iconic 6217, also known as the 62 MAS, and then going through the 6105, the 6306 series, and the 6309 series, and then finally the 7002, which is the 007's direct predecessor. The 007 was first produced in 1996, and it's actually one of several modern divers from Seiko, powered by the brand's 7S26 automatic movement, which is a well-known workhorse within the industry. Other variants feature the same case, but paired with different dials, designs, and colors, and some of which were actually conceived for very specific international markets. It's a watch that we honestly should have reviewed a while ago, as it's perfect for our readership. When people ask us for a great dive watch under 200 bucks, this is the watch that we would recommend. At the pop-up flea a few weeks ago, it was probably the most common watch worn on people's wrists who stopped by our booth. So let's take a closer look. The 007 case comes in at approximately 42.5 millimeters wide and 45.5 millimeters if you take into account the crown. The lug-to-lug length is 46 millimeters, which is a relatively reasonable size that should work on a number of different wrists. The lug width is a well-balanced 22 millimeters, so you shouldn't have any issues with finding aftermarket straps. The case is a bit thick at 13.25 millimeters, but that tends to be a pretty common trait among Seiko divers. They tend to wear to be a little bit thicker, but they don't wear too high off the wrist, and the whole design just feels relatively well balanced. The execution of the case is actually quite nice and elegant. It's highly polished on the sides, and there's a slight bevel where the case meets the bezel, and it extends all the way down to the lugs. The tops of the lugs, in contrast to the sides, feature a very fine brushed finish. At 4 o'clock is the unsigned crown, and it has a very fine coin edging. And the crown is flanked by these two very prominent crown guards, which are actually well integrated into the general flow of the case. It's not just two slabs of metal sticking out from the sides of the case. Now, due to the size of the crown guards, it can be a little bit difficult to operate the crown at times. I've had some difficulty getting the threads in, but I wouldn't say it's a design flaw, but it definitely takes some getting used to. And sitting atop of the case is a chamfered hardlex crystal, which is Seiko's proprietary mineral crystal. The 120-click bezel is very well executed. It features a two-tiered groove pattern that allows for a very easy and sure grip. The bezel action overall is impeccable, especially for a watch at this price point. It turns smoothly, and there's very little play in the bezel, which is great because watches often 5 times the price of this one fail to get a detail like this right. The insert itself is aluminum, it's black, and it features sort of a mil-sub configuration with markers going all the way around the bezel insert. And one detail that I found that's very cool is that the loom pip is actually shielded with a tiny bit of hardlex. Again, this is a detail that you often find on more expensive watches, and it really goes to show that Seiko really does care about the details and quality regardless of price point. Turning the watch around, you just have the case back with sort of a very attractive tsunami medallion in the middle, and along the perimeter of the case back, you just have some of the watch specs laid out. One thing I love about the 007 dial is how utilitarian it really is. Everything is laid out clearly, legibly, it's not blingy, and really it's just everything that a modern tool dive watch should be. It features a matte black base with rounded white hour markers, though there are 2 exceptions, one at 12 where you have the inverted triangle, and one at 3 o'clock where you have the date aperture. All hour markers are packed generously with Seiko's LumiBrite luminous material, which is some of the best on the market and gives the watch its renowned nighttime visibility. I'm usually not a fan of white date wheels against black dials, but I don't actually find the application too offensive here. I actually find that the elongated aperture does a good job at matching the longer marker at 9 o'clock, so the dial does retain some semblance of symmetry. The brand insignia is at its traditional spot, directly underneath the 12 o'clock marker, and the rating designation is above the 6 o'clock marker, and it reads Divers 200 meter in red, which is a nice little pop of color onto the dial. The face is extended to this sloping chapter ring, also black, but with silver hash markers representing the seconds and the minutes. The hours and minutes hand are distinctive to Seiko and pull from the brand's heritage. The hours hand is a sword hand with a needle tip, and the minutes hand is a stylized arrow with a broad base and a needle tip that reaches just a few millimeters shy of the chapter ring. Both hands are generously filled with Seiko's LumiBrite material, so they'll glow as bright as the dial does. The seconds hand is actually a bit of a departure for Seiko in that it has a significantly long counterbalance with a lume lollipop end bordered in black trim. I somewhat like this detail in not because it offers any sort of real utility, but because it just looks kind of cool to see a floating white disc move across the dial. The rest of the seconds hand doesn't have any lume on it, it's just painted white. The SKX is an incredibly versatile watch. Obviously, being a dive watch, it is a bit on the more sportier end of things, but I wouldn't feel out of place wearing it with a suit given the right bracelet or strap option. The watch can be bought on a number of different straps. It comes with the rubber two-piece that you see here, a stainless steel oyster bracelet, and a stainless steel Jubilee bracelet. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the bracelets Seiko supplies with their more affordable timepieces. They're generally kind of flimsy feeling. Usually they have hollow end links, and I just don't really like the way they wear. So I went with the rubber strap, obviously. The rubber strap is quite solid. It has these very interesting ridges. It's not the softest rubber strap that I've ever tried on. It's a bit stiff out of the box, but it does contour the wrist quite well. The 007 being a dive watch, I think it'll look right at home on any number of military nylon slip-through straps. For those interested in a bracelet option, I would recommend the Jubilee bracelet with solid end links from Strapcode. For about $63, you get a well-made solid hunk of metal to pair with your watch. It looks great in my opinion, and I actually love the way the vintage styling of the bracelet dresses the watch up a bit. My only complaint is that the end links aren't an exact match to the case. They kind of jet out a little bit past the lugs, but it's really only noticeable under extreme scrutiny, and it's not really going to be something that you're going to concern yourself with. But beyond that, I think it's a very attractive pairing. The SKX007 is a no-brainer. It's cheap, it's robust, it looks good, and it's a watch that you can wear every day for almost any occasion. If you're looking for a new watch, there is no better way to spend $150. If the 007 isn't exactly to your liking, it might be worth checking out some of the other variations in the market, which are generally priced around the same, though some models like the SKX173 can be a bit more expensive. In the full review, I talk about some of the different modding options as well, and what that means to you and your experience with the watch. So please read the full review on Worn&Wound, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and thanks for watching.